Welcome to this AQA GCSE Geography revision blast for weather hazards. This is part of Paper 1, The Challenge of Natural Hazards. We're going to start off with a game of altered vowels. For this one, each of the key terms shown are related to weather hazards. They've had their vowels changed to an alternative, so they look a little bit strange on the screen. Can you work out the key phrase? So what we will do is we'll leave each one on the screen for a few seconds. If you need extra time at any point, just pause the video and restart when you're ready. Our first one is on the screen now. We're starting off with quite an easy one. Let's reveal. It is thunder. Slightly more difficult one here. The second word hopefully is quite easy. First word maybe a little bit more tricky. So pause if you need a little bit more time. Let's reveal the answer. It is prolonged rainfall. So rainfall over a long period of time, obviously a bit of a problem because you end up with saturated ground which can't absorb any more water. So there's a high risk of flooding. Right, we have two separate things here, but they generally occur together. Again, hopefully the last word is pretty easy to work out. If you need more time, pause. Let's reveal. It is drought and extreme heat. So drought is a long period of time without rainfall or below average rainfall. So we generally get these sort of in the summer. And extreme heat obviously is when our temperatures get really high. So we sort of class anything above 30 degrees in the UK as extreme heat. Last year we did get over 40 degrees, so our record-breaking temperatures in the UK. With climate change, we're concerned about seeing these events far more often. Drought means obviously we don't have enough water to meet our demands for things like farming, domestic use, industry, whatnot. And it did lead last year to hosepipe bans being called from a number of different water companies across the UK. And they go hand in hand with extreme heat because extreme heat generally means that we're going to have much more evaporation. So those water sources dry up a lot more quickly. Right, next one on the screen. Let's reveal. It is heavy snow and extreme cold. Okay, so these are all, so far, they have been all extreme weather events that we would see in the UK. And our last one is, let's reveal. We have strong winds. So in the UK, we don't have hurricanes or typhoons or cyclones because our seas are not warm enough for those conditions to happen. But we do often get strong winds. So they might gust sort of between 70 and 90 miles an hour quite commonly, depending on where you are. The higher up you are in terms of altitude, the stronger they will be. But we do get big gusty winds right across the coastline. And obviously these can do quite a lot of damage when they happen. Right, I'm going to move on to a game of red herring. So you will see 4 items. In each case, there is an odd one out. You've got to work out which one shouldn't be there and why. Let's go. So we've got winter storm, heat wave, sunny intervals and drought. Which is the odd one out and why? Again, if you need more time at any point, just pause the video. It is sunny intervals. The others are all extreme weather in the UK. Now, I imagine some of you possibly put winter storm, thinking that the others were all to do with summer, which would make sense. But in this case, we're looking at extreme weather events in the UK. Right, number 2, roads cut off so people can't get to work, businesses damaged, education disrupted, reduction in GDP. So gross domestic product, that last one is. It's a measure of the value of the goods and services in a country. Which one is the odd one out and why? Let's reveal. It is education disrupted as schools are closed. So the others are all economic effects of weather hazards. So they're to do with money. Let's move on to number 3. We've got decline in insect population, injury or loss of life, ecosystems permanently damaged, or decline in wildflower varieties. So again, which one is the odd one out and what have the other 3 got in common? If you need to pause the video for more time, please do. Let's reveal the answer. It is injury or loss of life because the others are all environmental effects of weather hazards. Let's move on to number 4. We've got schools closed, so education is disrupted. Buildings damaged. We've got health services overwhelmed, and we've got injury or loss of life. So hopefully you're seeing a pattern here. Which one is the odd one out? Right, let's reveal the answer. It is businesses damaged because the others are all social effects of weather hazards. Right, I'm going to move on to the connection spinner. So how can we protect ourselves against weather hazards? Let's have a look at what we need to do for this activity. So on the screen we have 6 weather hazards. What we're going to do is we're going to spin the spinner. We're going to see which one it lands on, and then we're going to think about how we can protect ourselves against that specific hazard. Okay, our first weather hazard is drought and extreme heat. So you might want to pause the video before we reveal the answer. Think about how we can protect ourselves against drought and extreme heat. We're going to give you a few moments to think about this one. What can we do as a country to protect ourselves against this specific weather hazard? Okay, let's reveal the answer. So we can pop a hosepipe ban in affected regions. So this happened right across the southeast last year. And with a hosepipe ban, you cannot use water for unnecessary uses. So for example, you can't water your garden with it, you can't wash your car, etc. And if you are caught by a water company doing this, you can actually be fined a significant amount of money. Obviously, it's quite difficult to police this though. Right, where are we going to land this time? Okay, so we're moving on to strong winds. Have a think about what we could do to protect against this type of weather hazard. We can actually issue lots of severe weather warnings using a whole range of media, and then what often will happen as a result will be things like bridges will be closed. So for example, the big bridge that goes over the River Thames at Dartford, the Dartford crossing, or Queen Elizabeth II bridge there, those of you that live down that area will know that regularly gets closed. There's a bridge in Suffolk called the Orwell Bridge, which is just on the outskirts of Ipswich, which again regularly gets closed because of strong winds. It will happen in places like Yorkshire with the Humber, the Severn Bridge that goes from England to Wales. Lots of things there that we can do to make sure that accidents are not happening because of high winds. Okay, we're going to move on to a bubble quiz. With the bubble quiz, you will be shown a number of questions, and in each case, the number of answers that are correct can range from 0 to all 4. So let's have a look at our first question. So we're looking at the Somerset Levels floods in this question. Now, lots of you would have done this as a case study for your extreme weather event in the UK. So which of these are causes of the Somerset Levels floods? So the river hadn't been dredged for 20 years, steep slopes in the valley, saturated ground following prolonged rainfall, and a huge storm surge in the Bristol Channel. If you need a little bit more time to work these out, please do, but we're looking for which of these are correct, ranging from 0 to all 4. Let's reveal the answer. It is everything apart from B. So the rivers hadn't been dredged for 20 years. They were filled with all sorts of debris, like bits of tree. Saturated ground followed prolonged rainfall. So these happened in January, February time in 2014. We'd had a really, really wet winter. So the ground was completely saturated, meaning that it couldn't absorb any more water. You had a huge storm surge coming up the Bristol Channel. Steep slopes in the valley is not relevant here because the Somerset Levels are really, really flat. So if you've seen any video footage of here, it was literally just water for miles. That's all you could see. Which of these were immediate responses to the flood? So remember, immediate responses happen in the first few hours and days of a flood. The idea is there to minimise the loss of life. So we've got tents distributed for people to sleep in, food parcels airlifted in, boats used to get to school and the shops, and evacuation of farm and livestock. Okay, so they all sound quite plausible. So which ones are relevant for this case study? Let's reveal. So we didn't give people tents to sleep in because it's the UK. It was January. Obviously, people are not going to be wanting to be sleeping in tents in the middle of January and February. Food parcels were airlifted in again, not relevant because it's the UK. So they're immediate responses that you would expect in a low-income country event. But we did use boats to get to school and to the shops, and there was a massive evacuation of farms and livestock because it is a really rural area where this happens. So lots of farms were underwater. Right, which of these were long-term responses to the floods? More pumping stations built, the dredging of the River Tone and Parrett, road levels were raised, and widening and straightening of the river channel. Okay, let's reveal the answer. A widening and straightening of the river channel is a way to reduce flooding because it means that if you straighten the channel, so you widen the channel, you can actually have more water in the so you can fit more water in before it starts to flood. If you straighten the river channel, the water will generally flow quicker, so it will be out of the area at risk more quickly. However, that was not used in this case. So in the Somerset Levels flooding case study, more pumping stations were built, which meant that the water can be removed more quickly. The rivers were dredged and the road levels were raised because there were some communities that were cut off for weeks because their roads were completely underwater. We're going to still stay with the Somerset Levels flooding. This time we've got a categorised activity. You've got 60 seconds to separate the key phrases that you can see on the screen into 3 categories. So they're all impacts of the floods. We want to know, are they social to do with people? Are they economic to do with money? Or are they environment to do with sort of the wildlife and the landscape? So pause the video if you need a little bit more time to sort these out into those 3 categories. I'm going to reveal the answers now. In terms of social impacts, we had many homes had their power supply cut off, over 600 houses flooded, and 6 farms were evacuated. And villages such as Moshelny and Moorland were completely cut off, and they were cut off for weeks. And actually, the houses that were flooded, those people were unable to get back to their homes for several months after the floodwaters subsided. In terms of economic impacts, we had over 1,000 livestock evacuated. The cost of flood damage was more than 10 million, and we're talking about quite a small area, so quite a rural area. Obviously, if it happened in cities, it would be much more, but this was significant considering how remote the area is. And over 14,000 hectares of farming land was underwater for between 3 and 4 weeks. So significant damage to flooding, to farming there. In terms of the environmental impacts, we had the floodwaters heavily contaminated by sewage and pollutants, and huge amounts of debris had to be cleared. Okay, so we have another red herring activity here. Okay, so like before, though it looks slightly different this time. We have got 4 fish on the screen. 3 of them have something in common. One of them is the odd one out. Which one is the odd one out? So like before, if you need a little bit more time to work them out, then please pause the video. We're about to reveal. It is tornadoes. The others are all tropical storms, okay? Now, hurricanes, cyclones and typhoons are the same thing. They just have a different name depending on where they occur. So hurricanes occur in the Atlantic Ocean, We see cyclones mainly in the Indian Ocean, typhoons mainly in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so let's have a look at our next one. So which one is the odd one out? It is Typhoon Hyun. Okay, the others are all hurricanes. They all happened in the last 6 years. Hyun is a typhoon. It happened in 2013. Lots of you would have done Hyun as your extreme weather event. Right, we're going to move on to another bubble quiz. This time we're thinking, we're kind of looking more global than our previous one. The last one obviously focused on the Somerset Levels. So same as before, the number of answers that are correct range from 0 to all 4. So which of the following terms are used to describe tropical storms? Nice, easy one to start, hopefully, because again, it just repeats a question we've just seen a moment ago. Let's reveal. It is hurricanes, typhoons and cyclones. Okay, tornadoes are not tropical storms. Sort of a funnel of air there. They can happen anywhere. They tend to concentrate mainly in places like the Midwest in the USA, but you can actually get them in the UK. They tend to be quite small, quite localised, but obviously very damaging. Which of the following countries would the term hurricane be used to describe a tropical storm? We've got Mexico, we've got Bangladesh, we've got the USA, and we've got Japan. Let's reveal the answer. So Mexico and the USA, we would use that term hurricane. Which of the following countries would the term typhoon be used to describe a tropical storm? So we've got Cuba, we've got the Philippines, Sri Lanka and Japan. Let's reveal the answer. It's the Philippines and Japan, so both Pacific Ocean countries. Okay, and the Philippines is where Typhoon Haiyan, which lots of you will have studied, took place. In which of the following countries would we use the term cyclone to describe a tropical storm? We've got Jamaica, Sri Lanka, India and Bangladesh. Let's have a look. So all of them apart from Jamaica. So Indian Ocean countries here. And finally, in which sea areas would the term hurricane be used? So again, if you were listening carefully, this one should be quite easy. Okay, let's reveal. We've got the Caribbean Sea, we've got the Eastern Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So the Eastern Pacific Ocean is the bit that is on the west coast of the USA, the west coast of Canada, the west coast of Central America, and obviously the west coast of South America. Okay, on the Western Pacific Ocean, we would call them typhoons. Right, we're going to do another categorised activity. This time you are separating the phrases into 2 categories of primary and secondary impacts. So just to remind ourselves what they are. Primary impacts are caused by the event itself. Secondary impacts are a knock-on, an indirect impact. They are caused generally by the primary impacts. So if we think about a tropical storm, a primary impact will be caused by the flooding or the high winds. So you've got 60 seconds to separate those 8 phrases into the 2 categories. So you might want a pen and pencil at the ready. If you need more time, once the timer has gone off, then please pause the video and restart when you are ready. So if you need a little bit more time, then pause the video, restart it when you're ready. But let's reveal the answers. In our primary impacts, we've got widespread flooding wipes out crops. We've got a storm surge leading to many deaths through drowning. So in a tropical storm, the storm surge is always the most damaging thing. It's the thing that leads to the most deaths. People displaced as homes are damaged or flattened, and we've got the destruction of schools and hospitals. In our secondary impacts, we've got things like landslides, damaged roads, cutting off remote communities for several days. Power supplies in some areas are cut off for months. Many jobs lost as shops and offices are destroyed, affecting people's livelihoods. And broken water main causes landslides and mud flows. So if we have a look at that secondary impacts column, you can see these are caused by primary impacts. So the power supplies in some areas cut off for a month is a secondary impact, and the primary impact linked to that would be that power lines were brought down by the high winds. Okay, now we've got many jobs lost is a secondary impact, and the shops and offices being destroyed is the primary impact within that sentence. Broken water main would be a primary impact, and it's caused landslides and mud flows as a secondary impact. So it's sometimes quite tricky to distinguish between what's a primary and what's a secondary impact, but a secondary impact is always the knock-on effect of something else that's happened because of the wind. Okay, so again, we've got the fact that remote communities have been cut off for several days. Well, it's a damaged road, which is a primary impact there. Right, we're going to move on, and this time we have got 30 seconds. In that 30 seconds, I would like you to give me the name of the 3 cells that join together to form the overall circulation of the Earth's atmosphere. This is a tricky topic, but hopefully you have remembered the name of the 3 cells. Off we go. Right, let's see how you got on. So we have the Hadley cell, we have the Ferrel cell, and we have the polar cell. So the Hadley cell is the one that happens sort of around the equator. In that region there, it's responsible for lots of tropical storms. The Ferrel cell is in the higher latitudes, actually where we're located, and the polar cell is right at the top and the bottom, so sort of around Antarctica, obviously in the Arctic regions there, okay, and responsible for really cold weather. Let's have a look at some true or false questions which are related to that. So firstly, solar radiation is highly concentrated at the equator, causing air to rise, creating a low pressure zone. Is that true or false? Just going to give you a moment to digest that statement, see whether you think it is correct. Let's reveal. It is true. Right, as air rises and cools above the equator, it forms wispy cirrus clouds. Is this true or false? Let's have a look. It is false. It does those great big towering storm clouds, those cumulonimbus clouds instead. Right, we're going to move on to scrambled sentences. Now on the screen, we have got 7 sentences. Now these all go together to tell us how a tropical storm is formed. Now this is very important. We need to know our processes, and one thing that you could be asked in the exam is to explain how a tropical storm is formed. We have got on the screen the perfect answer, but it is jumbled up and is currently an absolute mess. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this on the screen for a few moments. Your job is to try and work out which order it goes in. You are going to have to pause the video here. You can obviously have as much time as you need. You can note down the numbers, or you can write out the sentences. It's entirely up to you. If you're going to write out the sentences, you might want to wait until we have revealed the correct answer. So if we have a look at them individually, we've got the storm steered by the prevailing wind. We've got on reaching land, storm loses its source of power and weakness. Friction also slows it down. Rising air cools and condenses to form tall cumulonimbus clouds. Latent, which is hidden heat, is released within condensation, further powering the storm. But the winds start to spin upwards due to the Coriolis effect. But the air heated above the surface of warm tropical oceans. Cold air sinks in the eye, creating calm, dry conditions, and the warm air rapidly rises, drawing more air and large volumes of moisture from the ocean, causing strong winds. Now, one thing that is worth pointing out is lots and lots of key terms there, some good geographical words. So you need to make sure in answers like this, you try to include as many key vocab as you can. I think what we'll do now is we'll pause the video, or you will pause the video, take as much time as you need. Once you are ready, unpause and we'll reveal the correct order. Good luck. Right, let's see how you got on. So this is the order that they should be in. So we've got air is heated above the surface of warm tropical oceans. Remember that those oceans need to be 27 degrees or warmer, which is why we don't ever get tropical storms in the UK, because the warmest our ocean ever gets is about 16 or 17 degrees, and that is actually quite rare. This warm air rises rapidly, drawing more air and large volumes of moisture from the ocean, causing strong winds. Rising air cools and condenses to form tall cumulonimbus clouds. Latent heat released within condensation further powers the storm. Wind starts to spin upwards due to the Coriolis effect. Cold air sinks in the eye, creating calm, dry conditions. The storm is steered by the prevailing wind, and on reaching land, the storm loses power. So it uses a source of its power and weakens, and friction also slows it down. However, sometimes those storms do bounce back out to the ocean, gain a bit more momentum and come back in, which is what happened during Hurricane Katrina, which, those are really old case studies now. It is one that some of you might do. It happened in 2005 in the USA, on the coast of Louisiana, so hitting New Orleans in particular, and it did bounce back out to the ocean and came back with more force a second time. Okay, we're going to move on to a 10-second blast off. So you've got 10 seconds to answer the questions on screen. So our first one is a nice and easy one. Which oceans are hurricanes found in?
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
So it is North Atlantic and Northeast Pacific. Okay, next one. Which oceans are cyclones found in?
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, we've got the South Pacific and Indian. And which oceans are typhoons?
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, Northwest Pacific. That's the end of the revision blast for weather hazards. Please check the playlist because we have got revision blasts for all topics. If they're not there at the moment, they will be added over the next few weeks in the run up to your exams. And obviously the last thing to say is good luck.